This is Pre-Calculus 11, Lesson 2 on multiplying radicals. This is the first video on page 65. And so we are continuing with our operations on radicals. This is multiplying. So use a calculator to check and see which of these are true and which of these are false. And now take a look at those and see if you see a pattern that lets you, or a rule. Can you come up with a rule that tells you about what you need to do, what you need to have to multiply radicals? So you can multiply radicals if the indices, that's plural of index, are the same. So up here, this is a square root and a square root and a square root, and that's a square root and a square root, and that gets you a square root. This is a cube root and a cube root and a cube root, whereas this one is a cube root and a square root. You can't do that, and a square root and a cube root, you can't do that. You have to have the same index on each term that you're multiplying. Okay, so let's do some examples. So you have to have the you just multiply it all together. It's yeah, you multiply the numerical coefficients, you multiply the numbers together, and you multiply the radicands together. So, for example, A here, this is going to be, you can write this a bunch of ways. This is basically, it's the square root of 8 times 8. So that's the square root of 64, which is 8. And this one, you're going to go 4 times 3. So like you're going to take the coefficient parts, and then you're going to go times root 5 times root 6. So this is going to be 12 root 30. And then you're always going to check and see if you can simplify that or reduce that. But 30 is not something that can be changed into a mixed radical. Here, this is going to be 4 times 3 times root x times y, like root x times root y, so we get 12 root xy. And this is going to be negative 2 times 5 times the square root of 8 times 12, which is going to be negative 10 times the square root of 96. And then I have to simplify this root 96, so that's going to be negative 10 times root 16 times root 6, because 16 times 6 is 96. So that's going to be negative 10 times 4 times root 6, which is negative 40 times square root of 6. There's my simplified version. Now, there's another way you can do D, and that is to simplify these pieces first. So I've got negative 2 root 8 times 5 root 12. And I can simplify root 8 to 2 root 2. So that's negative 2 times 2 root 2. And then times 5, and root 12 is 2 root 3, so that equals negative 4 root 2 times 10 root 3, which is then negative 4 times 10 times the square root of 2 times 3, which is negative 40 root 6. Of course, you get the same answer either way. Which one is better? I don't know. Depends what strikes me the day of. One caution though, when you do this, do make sure that this can't be simplified further, whatever the radicand is when you get to the end there, because sometimes depending on how the two things shake out, that might need to be simplified still. Okay? All right, next example. Remember our rainbow lines. We're just doing distribution. This is like A times B plus C. I'm going to go A times B and A times C. Just that my A, B, and C are considerably uglier. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to have root 5 times 2 root 10 and root 5 times root 5. And, you know, I do recommend writing it down instead of trying to do it in your head. It's just so easy to mess this up, okay? So write that line out. All right, and then I get, I might do this as, this is going to be 2 root 50. I might, let me just come up here. I could have, this is root 5 times 2 root 10. And I might make that root 5 times 2 root 5 root 2. And then I've got my 2 5s pulled out already, so this becomes 2 times root 5 squared root 2, which is then 10 root 2. Or I might do it this way, and I'm going to simplify it in a minute. It doesn't matter. You're going to get the same thing in the end anyway. The thing that's important is show your work so you know what you did. And then if you make a mistake, I also know what you did, and I can find your mistake and give you part credit for the question. Anyway, back here, I get root 5 times root 5, which is just 5. And then 50 is 25 times 2. So this is going to be 10 root 2 plus 5. Oops, sorry, minus 5. That was not a good thing to do. This should be minus 5. So all of you that were wondering, why does she have plus? That was because it was a mistake. So there's my answer, 10 root 2 minus 5. Okay, this one is really ugly, and I think looking at this one, I would simplify each of these and before I do the distribution. You could distribute first, it's up to you, but I prefer to keep my numbers smaller rather than bigger. So this is going to be 2 root 5 times. This is a place where you might, I tend to have circles all over my thing. Like I might go like 3 root 45. I'm going to come over here, and I've got 3 root 45, and that equals 3 root 9 root 5, which is 3 times 3 root 5, which is 9 root 5. And then I'm going to punt that back over here, and I'm going to write this as 9 root 5. If I can't do this piece on the fly, rather than writing this little bit out a bunch of times, I'll take it off to the side and just deal with that one little piece to simplify it and then bring it back. Not always, but it's a good strategy to have. Okay, I can't simplify this one any further, so that's just 8 root 5. And 3 root 20, I know that 20 is 4 times 5, so this is going to be 3 times the 2, so that's 6 root 5. And so this was a good strategy this time because I can actually add all of these pieces that are inside here now. So this becomes 2 root 5 times 9 root 5 minus 8 root 5 is 1 root 5 plus 6. This is 7 root 5. And then when I multiply this, I get 2 times 7 is 14, and root 5 times root 5 is 5. So my answer is 70. All right. There's nothing new here. This is just taking things that you have done in the past, hopefully you remember, and you are just applying now these ugly exponent questions or radical questions to what you know. So here we go again. This one, I need to distribute the 2 for that, and I need to distribute the root 2 for that. So I'm going to get 2 root 3 minus 2 root 5 minus root 2 times root 6 is root 12. And then this is also going to be minus because it's negative root 2 times root 10, so that's going to be minus root 20. And then I need to see if I can simplify any of these, and I can simplify the root 12 and the root 20. So I get 2 root 3 minus 2 root 5 minus That's going to be 4 times 3, so that's 2 root 3, and that's 4 times 5, so that's 2 root 5. And then I'm going to add these things together, so I get 2 root 3 minus 2 root 3 is 0. Let's cancel. And I get minus 2 root 5 minus 2 root 5 is minus 4 root 5. And there's my answer. And I can check that on my calculator, and that would be worth, on a test, that would totally be worth doing, because silly mistakes can happen. All right, distribute this one. I get negative 4a times root a is minus 4a, and then a negative 4 times negative 9 is plus 36, and root ab. That one was easier. I'm not sure why. I guess because we couldn't simplify much along the way there, could we? All right, and then we get the word problems. Remember area. So area is length times width. So we'll do A first. So I'm going to just, again, I always say write the formula out first, okay? And don't worry about what's going to happen 3 or 4 steps from now. Just write out what you know. Area equals length times width, okay? So area is length times width. Well, I'm going to decide that this one's the length. So that is 4 plus root 6 times the width, which is 7 minus root 6. And now I have to distribute this. So I get 4 times 7 is 28. 4 times minus root 6 is minus 4 root 6. And then plus 7 root 6 and minus root 6 times root 6, which is just 6. So I get 28 minus 6 is 22. And then 7 root 6 minus 4 root 6 is 3 root 6. And there we go. That wasn't as bad as it looked, is it? Okay. Oh, I meant to just remind you that here we have to FOIL. First, outer, inner, last, right? First, outer, inner, last. Okay. All right, the area of a square. Why is this not working? Area of a square is the side length squared. So that is, my side length is 2 root 18 minus root 27 squared. I look at that and I think I can simplify that. So I think that'll make my life easier if I simplify this a bit. So 2 root 18, that becomes 2 times 3 root 2. I'm just going to write that as 6 root 2. And then the square root of 27 is going to be 3 root 3. And I'm going to square that. Now, don't make the mistake of trying to square that without writing it out as a binomial times a binomial, because what you will do is you will square this one and square this one, and that is not going to be the right answer. You need to FOIL these, okay? So write it out properly. It's the whole thing times the whole thing, and now I can FOIL it. So my first is going to be 6 times 6 is 36 times, 36 times root 2 times root 2, which is 2. Be careful there that you don't write it times 4. You can do 36 root 4, but it's probably just, be really careful about that. This is easy to mess up, okay? 6 times negative 3 is minus 18. Root 2 root 3 is root 6. And then minus the same thing, minus 18 root 6. And then negative times a negative is plus. And this is going to be 9 times 3. So this is 72 minus 36 root 6 plus 27. So that equals 99 minus 36 root 6. And it's probably worth picking up your calculator and making sure that this number and this number squared are actually equal. I had this wrong on my notes, and then I did it wrong in a different way the first time I did this part of the video. So it's worth checking your answers whenever you can.